And welcome to Coffee with a Purpose. I hope everyone had a good Thanksgiving. I was saying to Sarah, for those in the room, if anyone's noticing that the screen is kind of skinny, there's two possible explanations for that. It's either that this is my post-Thanksgiving gift to you, and even if you think you ate too much, you look nice and skinny on that screen. Or it's that I couldn't quite figure out the aspect ratio on
I'll take it.
whatever the reason. Here we go. So our topic this morning is
Do you want me to start the recording?
yeah, no, I've already started the
recording. Oh,
and I'll admit,
okay.
Carrie, keep an eye on the waiting room, Sarah.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find it here. Hang on. I've got the, oh, here we go. Okay, wait, did you just let him in? He just disappeared. Okay. All right, sorry. First time I'm doing this. I apologize.
All right. All right, so the topic is the immigrant welcoming policy, which may not actually be the name that we want to be calling it. Everything's up for grabs. Both Miriam and Marge are here from the Immigrant Welcoming Coalition, as well as Rolf Larson. So welcome, Rolf. And it's really just kind of open discussion. I don't think it's a secret that you know, this policy so far has met with quite vociferous community reaction. Fortunately, well, I shouldn't betray my own opinion here. Positive and negative, informed and misinformed, polite and caustic, whatever words you want to use. And so, if nothing else, besides our own participation in this conversation today, we'll have a recording of it, and maybe parts of that will be useful to people that want to make that recording known to others as the community continues to engage in this. So let's start with our usual introductions of folks. Just, I think now it's definitely the case that not everybody knows everybody. So I'm Doug. I moderate this session, and usually I rely on Martin. So hopefully I won't screw up too much without him here. Kathleen?
Hi, good morning. I'm Kathleen Donovan. I'm on the Library Board of Trustees. I also volunteer with Keeping It Beautiful. The library is very committed to being a welcoming place for everybody. So this is a discussion of particular interest to me.
Thanks, Kathleen. Judy?
Oh, hey, I'm Judy Dixon. I am the housing equity advocate at Family Promise Metro West. And have been involved in the public schools in Natick and recreation and parks and Spark Kindness and Path for Adaptive Opportunities. And I'm probably the newest member of Coffee with a Purpose. I've been coming since the summer, and it's a great group.
Thanks, Judy. Bill?
Hi, Bill Ramage, Coffee with a Purpose regular. Like to keep informed, and this is a great way to do it. I've been active with Natick, Keep Natick Beautiful, Trail Steward, and Community Preservation Committee's member.
Thanks, Bill. And Bill's wife, Gwen, who is not here, but has provided these amazing pecan bars, which are on the corner table there. So along with napkins. So help yourself for those physically present here. Rolf.
I'm Rolf Larson. I'm an active immigrant advocate, and I've also been involved in the Welcoming Policy Coalition for the last year and a half or so. Not as long as some of the members have been doing it for years and years.
Great. Thanks, Rolf. And I don't know if I know you.
You don't.
Yeah.
I don't know you either.
So welcome.
I'm Gail Weston Roberts, and Rolf and I are members of the same congregation, Grace Lutheran. I am, well, I was the youth and family coordinator at our congregation. I've been going to zoning board hearings for the past 2.5 years. I'm probably the only person who goes in person who's not involved in the actual transactions which are being decided. And for years before that, I did theater design and production at TCAN Players.
Oh.
So, you know, behind the scenes, not on stage. And yeah, I'm very interested in having real conversations with folks about where they're coming from on this, and it's really important.
Great, well, it's good to have you here. And folks online, Sarah?
Hi, I'm Sarah Hanna. Doug and I have been in town for over 40 years. I'm involved in a bunch of stuff. My main passion is environmental stuff. I'm a town meeting member, and I'm on Community Preservation Committee and interested in all things Natick.
Thanks, Sarah. Tom?
Yeah, I'm Tom Daly. I'm a 34-year resident of Natick. And I am active in the 350.org climate activist group. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Marge?
Marge Roberson, a retired Natick High School teacher. I was on the Immigrant Welcoming Policy Committee. I also work with a worker center in Framingham to help immigrants and volunteer for Family Promise, and I think that might be it. I've been in Natick for 25 years, maybe.
Thanks, Marge. Miriam?
Good morning, everyone. Miriam Hernandez Jennings. I am a pro bono ED of Natick East United, and I work with it with Marge, actually. That was one thing that you forgot to say, Marge. I have been a resident of Natick for 24 years, have raised two sons here, and I'm originally from Chile and came to the United States when I was 18 years old, when the CIA decided to help stage a coup, and we had a dictator for 17 years, and I was very active against it in my country. And so I had to leave home, and I came to the United States. I started in Salt Lake City, Utah, made my way to Under Newton Theological School in Newton Center, and then to Natick. So I have been in this community for quite a bit, and I have loved the way that this community comes together. And I think that's why I have been working also, not only because I am an immigrant, but because it's important. I think that we welcome everyone to our community. So I have been very active in supporting the Immigration Coalition. Thank you.
Thanks, Miriam. Rick?
Well, I'm glad this conversation is taking place, and I wish more of the community were here. I am a town meeting member and a member of volunteer with Eco Natick, and trying to be as knowledgeable a citizen as I can be at this point, because I'm fairly new, 6 years in Natick, and looking forward to the conversation. Thank you for coming.
Thanks, Rick. Lost my windows. Who's next here? How about Carrie?
Hi, good morning. First, I just quite a story, Miriam. You know, having lived 17 years under Pinochet, and I can't imagine what that was like. Glad you're here. Let's see. Actually, done a couple things. Former town meeting member. Do a lot of environmental stuff. I coordinated the repair cafes, treasure for Keep Natick Beautiful. A couple of environmental things, and do some maintenance work at Family Promise, and help manage a piece of property for the Affordable Housing Trust. That's about it.
Thanks, Carrie. Pat?
Yeah, good morning.
Morning.
I think I'm on mute. I'm sorry. Yeah.
No, you're not. We can hear you.
Oh, you can't. Okay. Good morning, Pat Conaway. Keep Natick Beautiful.
Thanks, Pat. Susan?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Susan Simone Kang. I've been living in Natick for the past 16 years. My husband has been living here a lot longer. We have 4 children who've all gone through the Natick public school systems. Currently have a middle schooler. I'm the daughter of immigrants. My dad lives in senior housing here in Natick. I'm an immigration attorney, and I'm a member of the Immigration Policy Coalition.
Thanks, Susan. Sally?
Hi, good morning. I'm Pat's sister, so I have to keep Natick beautiful. That's my job. I love the town and I've only been here 7 years, but 7 rich years, and you all on Coffee with a Purpose make it real wonderful to be here and be a listener.
Thanks, Sally. Carol?
Good morning. I'm Carol Berkowitz, and I've lived in Natick over 50 years. I live on Lake Cochituate, so I'm concerned about the lake, and I've been a town meeting member in the past. And I just turned 88 years old
Birthday yesterday.
today.
Happy
Yeah.
birthday.
Fantastic.
Great. And Ann Ingard.
Hi, I have been in Natick since 1990. I have 2 sons that both went to Natick High, and I'm a physical therapist. I've had a practice here for quite a long time, slowly winding down, and just interested in what's in town.
Thanks, Ann, and welcome to Coffee with a Purpose. I think this might be your first time here. Cindy Bates.
Good morning. A 5-year resident of Natick, a trail steward, Keep Natick Beautiful supporter, and a singer in Sound and Spirit concert coming up.
Thanks, Cindy. Gianji?
Yes, good morning, everybody. My name is Jean-Jim Molnar, and I live in Natick more than 25 years. I have one kid. He grew up in this town, and he participated, or he entered to the different public school system. So I'm a very happy resident of Natick. I got retired, and last year I worked in the pharmaceutical industry. And I just love this town, and I would like to learn what's happening here. And if anywhere I could offer my help as a retired person, I would be happy to do it. So that's it.
Good to know. Thanks, Gianji. Deborah Mitchell.
Hi, this is
Deborah.
Deborah Mitchell, regular CWA member, part of the 2% of the Black community here in Natick, former leader of the Natick for Black Lives Matter, now called Natick for Black Lives Matter Metro West. I'm a children's book author, and I have a children's book signing coming up on the 21st at the Natick Morse Library. I'm glad to be here reading former town meeting member, and wishing well to all. Thank you.
Thanks, Deborah. Jay.
Hi guys, Jay Paddock. I'm a resident. I'm also the town communications director. I'm here with my resident hat on and a huge supporter of what Miriam and Marge do.
Thanks, Jay. Brinley.
Good morning. 24-year-ish resident of Natick, also a town meeting member. I love to be involved, also definitely an environmentalist. I work some with Natick and other people. I am also a huge fan of Miriam and Margin, Susan, and everything you guys are doing. Miriam used to be my neighbor, so I've also known her for 20 some odd years. Marge used to be my neighbor. So I'm very excited that you guys are here today. I'm grateful for all of your work and effort, and thank you. I look forward to today.
Thanks, Brinley. And Donna.
Hi, my name is Donna McKenzie. I am a town meeting member, a former school committee member, and I grew up in Natick, went totally through Natick schools. I'm living in what was my parents' house that they bought in 1951. So I guess that's 73 years my family has been in Natick. I am not that old. And I just wanted to say that. I don't know. And I love Natick. I've lived all over the country. I apologize. I've got a sick dog, which is limiting my ability to go to meetings in person these days. But I'm happy to be here. I know a lot about Natick. I'm an academic. I am a professor in bioethics. I taught at Cornell and at Fordham. I moved back here and I took care of my father when he could no longer live alone. So that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Donna, and I think we've got everybody. So Marge and Miriam and others, turn it over to folks from the coalition to maybe help us understand how we got here and maybe where's the best way to go forward from here.
So I created a slideshow partly because I wanted to establish language, which gets confusing, and also show a little bit about the makeup of immigrants in Natick already, and then the rest of it focuses on the policy. And then we can do question and answers. Does that sound good? Or we could just do question and answers if people know enough about the policy to do that.
No, I think the grounding with the slideshow would be a great primer.
All right, so you have to give me access so I can share my screen, I think.
I think I've got it set that all participants can share, so.
Oh, okay, great. I just have to find it now.
Somewhere near the bottom, probably.
It's there. All right, so hold on, I'm getting there. Don't tell anybody I used to teach technology at Natick High School because
it's a moving target.
Yeah, right. It changes
yes, I
every
know.
week.
Well, that's one of the things I liked about it is that you always knew the kids were smarter than you when it came to technology. Now if I can just get this thing to move over. There we go. Thank you very much. Okay, here we go. I won't spend a lot of, we really want to talk about the policy, but I thought a shared language is a really good thing to know. Can you all see that?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so first of all, immigrant. We throw that word around a lot. An immigrant is basically a person who migrates to another country for a variety of reasons. So it's basically someone living in a country other than that of his or her birth, of which there are probably a lot of us. An asylum seeker is someone, sorry, I can't read this, seeking international protection from dangers in his or her home country. In other words, they've come to the country here, since we're talking about the US, and they're asking for protection for some reason. Usually it's because the government can't protect them. They're the victim of violence or something like that. And it is longstanding US law that a person has to have the opportunity to seek asylum who is physically present in the United States. People have a year after arriving in the United States to seek asylum. And an asylee is someone who's sought asylum and been granted the right to go for asylum.
Yeah, this is Tom Daly and
Yeah.
Mark. I have a sick hearing aid.
Oh.
And mute Tom, they might have been having a sidebar conversation there. But.
Oh, okay. So documented refers to people who have legal papers. So either they've been told that they can seek asylum, which gives them paperwork from immigration, or they're a citizen, they have a green card, but they have some kind of documentation that gives them permission to be in the country. Anyone seeking asylum who has been granted the right to seek asylum, but hasn't necessarily achieved asylum is considered documented. Undocumented are people who are living in the country without any legal papers or quote permission to stay. In other words, they're here and they haven't sought asylum yet. They don't have the papers. And just so you know, a lot of undocumented people in this country are people who have overstayed their visas. They came and they didn't go home. And temporary protected status allows people from certain countries to come here and live and work. They are not asylees. They have to apply for asylum like anybody else, but they are in this country by permission, so they would be documented.
Can you give an example of that? Of
TPS?
Yeah.
I think the Haitians that are here now, are they not under TPS, Susan?
They are, the executive branch of government has a decision regarding natural disasters, significant government upheavals, and other systemic problems that exist in a country, and a decision is made to determine that a country is unwilling or unable to protect its own citizens, and the United States then creates a list. We have 16 countries currently on that list, and TPS is renewable every 3 years.
Thank you.
TPS renewable by the government, right? That they can say after 3 years that the people can still say.
That's correct. The government determines whether or not to renew that status for people.
Okay.
Hey, Marge, we'd also had a question in the chat just about how long
Okay.
The asylum law had been in existence for.
I think
If that's just answer or not, but
Susan's the better one to answer that. 1940 something.
yes, it comes out of World War II and the fact that numerous individuals of Jewish ancestry attempted to seek asylum here in the United States and other countries, and there was no mechanism to actually permit that. And so with this many series of international conventions that were created, and significant, even various NGOs that were created, even the concept of humanitarian assistance was started in the UK for the first time during this time period. We created an interconnection of a variety of conventions, including a convention to provide relief because people were actually turned back and were sent to the camps.
That answer the question?
yeah, I think.
I don't
for now,
have,
anyway, yeah.
I don't have a full detail and I don't want to take up time
yeah.
with all the.
So a credible fear interview is something that people who are seeking asylum have to undergo. And it is in order to convince immigration that they have a right to seek asylum. So when you cross the border, a lot of times you'll see pictures of people who've crossed the border who sit and basically wait for ICE to pick them up because they want to declare that they would like to seek asylum, and they go through what's called a credible fear interview. Reasonable fear is for people who've been deported and returned to United States. They're conducted by asylum officers, not necessarily judges. And so that's what, if they're told they don't have credible fear, then they might be told they have to leave the country. Deportation is basically, you have to leave the country, and you can be deported for entering without inspection. So that means you came across the border and you never talked to anybody and they find out you're here and they might deport you. They've been admitted, but they remain beyond their authorized period of stay. Those might be people who overstayed their visas, violated their terms of admission, such as they worked without authorization or they did something they weren't supposed to do while they were here, and you commit certain crimes which would render them removable under immigration law. And this is one of the things that the policy emphasizes, is that we're not preventing people from being deported for crimes. Work authorization, asylum seekers are allowed to apply for work authorization after 150 days. So bear in mind, they've now been in this country for almost 6 months without being able to work. And they apply, and then theoretically within 30 days, they'll know whether they're authorized to work. Refugees are automatically authorized. And once you're granted asylum, you're automatically authorized. Undocumented people do not have work authorization. However, they often work and they pay using a tax ID because the IRS doesn't care how you get your money. They just want your money. So you'll find that many undocumented people are paying into the tax system, even though they're not in theory authorized to work. ICE is basically Immigration and Customs Enforcement. They're the ones that you hear about all the time. They're supposed to be mitigating, mitigating transnational threats, safeguarding the nation, communities, laws, immigration, trade, travel, and financial systems. And by the way, if you're coming in from Canada, in New Hampshire, ICE can stop you 100 miles in. If you're coming from the Boston border, ICE can stop you 100 miles in. It's not just the southern border where they operate. So myths. Immigrants are a drain on the economy, which is actually not true. Wait, I want to see if I can get rid of this thing. Whoops. The other is that immigrants are criminals and their presence increases crime. Studies show that refugees and immigrants, both documented and undocumented, contribute more to the economy than they take out. They contributed 103.8 billion over a 15-year period, and an average refugee adult contributed $21,000 more in taxes than funds spent on their behalf. They're more likely to be active in the labor force and harness a $1.6 trillion spending power. Crime. Studies from Texas, that's important to note, have shown that areas with higher immigrant populations tend to have lower crime rates. Being an undocumented immigrant is not technically a crime, but it's a civil infraction. So if you cross the border, think of getting arrested for not stopping at a stop sign. It's that kind of crime. It's not a federal crime unless you recross the border, then it becomes federal. Immigration is one of the reasons that crime rates have dropped in the US over the past half decade. And neighborhoods with immigrant populations have comparatively lower crime rates. So this is a graph from this study in Texas, which shows you the top line is arrests for 100,000 persons. The blue line is US citizens. The orange line is documented immigrants, and the green line is unauthorized or undocumented immigrants. So that's important to keep in your head, that it's a very low rate of crime for undocumented immigrants, comparatively.
Marge, do you have any idea whether that data is continuing to get updated as it goes to
No,
20?
this is like 2020 or something, I think. I haven't seen anything since. This is the only thing I could find showed anything. I do know that if you look it up, even the newest studies, the newest things that people say is that immigrants commit less crimes than people who live in the country. And if you think about it, if you're undocumented, you're not going to do anything to get yourself deported. So
Right.
it's unlikely that, unless you're a criminal to begin with, in which case we would arrest you and deport you, you're probably not going to commit crimes.
Yeah, there was also a question in the chat from Brinley
Yeah.
about just a source for all of these statistics.
This is, boy, you know what? Let me find that and I'll send it to you because I have it. I don't have it right on me, but I will,
That's fine.
or I'll find it while we're talking and I'll put it in the chat. All right. One of the arguments that we've heard about the policy is that we're suddenly going to be flooded with immigrants. And I want people to understand there's also lots of people already here. And they're partly the ones that we want to protect. In 2024, there were 269 English learners in the high school alone, as opposed to 68 in 21 to 22. This is information from the ESL, head of the ESL speaker teacher at Natick High School. And there's over 50 languages. I'll just let you look at that for a minute. And they bring, obviously, cultural experiences that we wouldn't otherwise have if you never travel out of Natick. And there are 50 languages spoken in the district itself. All right, so here's the policy. In Massachusetts, police are not allowed to be detained because ICE wants them. If the police in Natick arrest someone, and let's say they arrest them for running a stop sign, and that person is allowed to leave the jail, they will not hold that person because ICE has asked them to. That's what an ICE detainer is. It's not a judge's order. It's ICE calling the police and saying, hey, we heard this guy, you have this guy there, would you, or woman there, would you please hold on to him for us? And the answer is no. They can ask people about immigration status. They can share information with ICE about people in police custody. That's a general state database. They can let ICE agents into jails and other police facilities without a warrant, and they can assist federal immigration raids. What our policies ask is that town employees do not enforce federal immigration laws. And I think I might have been wrong about them being able to do it, because you can't, I think Chief Hicks said at the meeting that you cannot participate in a federal raid. He does want to know when ICE is coming to town because he wants to make sure that the citizens are safe. But we do not want them being part of the raid. It prevents employees from detaining a person because they believe they're not here in the United States legally. So you might stop someone and say, hey, where are you from? You're not supposed to be here. Or that they've committed, or that you think they've committed an immigration violation. You have no idea where that person's from, where they crossed the border, whether they have papers or not. So we don't want to be able to ask that question. We want to direct our resources to fostering trust between community members and town employees so that all residents feel comfortable seeking help. And this again is something, if you're an immigrant and you see a crime or you're a victim of a crime, you might be hesitant to report it because you're afraid somebody's going to ask you your immigration status, and that starts a whole nother snowball of things happening to you. And so we want them to be able to interact with a town without being asked their immigration status or being detained because somebody thinks they're not legal. It does not prevent anyone from being arrested, charged, or convicted for any crime. It does not provide money or other benefits to undocumented people. It would not prevent ICE from enforcing federal immigration law in Natick, and it provides no sanctuary. We're not hiding people. We just want them to feel comfortable in our town with our town officials. And it does not prevent the police from cooperating with ICE. It contains no restriction on communication with ICE. And the only paragraph about it requires the town to share information with ICE under certain circumstances. So why do we need this? Right now, we have a chief of police and a police department that already integrates most of these policies, these practices into their work. But the first thing we want to do is send a message to undocumented members that we stand with them, that we don't want them persecuted because of their status. We want them to be able to report crimes to the police and utilize town services without fear. And we want to make sure that these practices continue regardless of changes in personnel or leadership. We have an amazing chief of police, but if he leaves, it's not necessarily true that the next person would be quite as understanding. And these are cities and towns that already have welcome and immigration policy. One of the complaints or one of the negative reactions to the policy is that we'll suddenly be overrun with immigrants. Acton, Concord, Maynard, Newton, those places might argue with you because I don't think that they've been overrun with immigrants since they implemented their policies. Also, some of these are police policies, not community policies, but they basically say the same thing. And yes, it is a Natick issue. We just want to make sure that people feel welcome and supported here. And there are people who live and work in Natick who are undocumented. And we want to make sure that they know that we support them and we care about them being here. And we're not here to debate federal immigration policy. We could spend years doing that, obviously, because Congress hasn't been able to do anything about it. But we have to be careful that we don't ignore what the policies do to our residents. And there are examples of people being discriminated against because they're immigrants. And I can give you two if you want to hear them. And that is that. So then I think now we're ready for any kinds of questions. If people, let me get rid of this.
Yeah, I heard a yes to hearing a couple of stories first on
Okay.
it.
So, there was a family here who had lived in Boston, and the
Excuse me,
people.
Marge, if you just want to
Oh.
stop sharing your screen
Go ahead.
too, if you're done with the slideshow.
I thought I turned it off. I'm sorry. I have to stop sharing, right? There we go.
Thanks.
I
Okay.
thought, I thought hiding it would get rid of it. So the family who had moved here, it was a mom, a couple of teenage girls and a grandmother. And they lived in an apartment in downtown Natick. And they had been living in Boston, but the people who were trying to get money out of them in their home country had found them, and so they were starting to persecute them. So a woman who worked for I think Jewish Family Services found them an apartment in Natick. They lived there for almost a year, and the whole time they were there, people in the apartment building were constantly criticizing them for what they were doing. And one day, the police showed up at the door. The grandmother was the only one home. And they went in and they had a sound complaint from somebody in the building. And the grandmother was the only one home. There was no one else there. They went into the building and they searched it without a warrant. And then when the lease came up on that apartment, even though they had paid the bills regularly, they were asked to leave. The other is actually Ralph's family, who was living successfully in an apartment, and their lease was also not renewed. And Ralph could maybe talk more about that, but there was no logical reason. They had been paying their rent regularly, and the people in the community they lived in actually asked the people who ran the community to let them stay, but they had to leave. Two situations. All right, and now we are ready for any questions anybody wants to ask.
Rick, you have your hand up. Rick, did you step away from the computer maybe? All right, well, we can circle back to Rick. In the meantime,
would it be okay if I shared a story?
yeah, go ahead, Susan.
I think that Marge just described some extremely dangerous situations, obviously. Here in Massachusetts, we've had a right to shelter that's been enshrined and has only recently been, reversed for a variety of different reasons. But obviously, putting people in fear of shelter is really significant. But I want to also point out that microaggressions or just everyday circumstances can be really upsetting and triggering for immigrants, especially those that have lived through situations like war or other circumstances. And so I just want to tell a bit of a personal story. My dad was born in 1933 and came to this country in his mid-30s, naturalized many, many years ago before I was born. But a few weeks ago at a local grocery store here in Natick, he was attempting to use his ATM card to process a transaction. And he is a little hard of hearing and he was having some trouble with the machine. The employee heard his accent and said, you're not from here. Sometimes when you leave and come back, the card doesn't always work. And my dad got really upset and said, I've been living in this country for over 50 years. And eventually the manager of the grocery store sought us out to their credit and actually asked me more like what had happened. But had I not been there to hear all that and not been there to support my dad, these are the kind of things that people deal with on a daily basis that can just suddenly crop up in your day when you think you're having a normal day, and then someone suddenly jolts you into you don't belong here or you're not from here. So I just want to mention that these like small daily, impacts, they're significant.
Rick, are you back yet? Not yet, okay. I had a question just about your group, about the coalition group, and maybe I'm completely mistaken about this. When did you guys form, and was the scope of your initial proposed policy bigger or different, or has it always been this? Anybody?
We started 4 years ago. And we started, I think we asked for some things that we're not necessarily getting, but we spent a lot of time talking with the police. We spoke to you folks, we spoke to Natick is United, we spoke to the Republican Town Committee, the Democratic Town Committee. Natick is United did a forum on the policy, and I presented at the select board 2 years ago, maybe 3, and they asked us to go back and interact with the community, which is what we did, and we sent it to the select board, and they've had some more conversations with Chief Hicks, and so between all those meetings, and particularly with the police, we have come up with a policy we came up with. It's a compromise for us, but it's doing basically what we're asking, which is that people in the town feel safe to do what they need to do without being accosted for their immigration status. So does that answer your question? But we started long before the current election made it even more critical that we implement this policy, but it was years ago.
Yeah, it does. It's just, as I read some of the naysayer comments on social media, or the letters that have been written to the select board, one of the things people seem to say a lot is that, oh, this is the group that wants to make Natick a sanctuary city. And I wasn't sure to what extent that might have harkened back to an earlier version of the work that was asking for more. I mean, it's also a good segue, and something I'm hoping we can discuss, or that you guys can address, that for folks that are speaking out against this, it seems like they are mischaracterizing substantially what you're trying to do. And I'm just hoping that maybe we can call out what are those misstatements that are being made, and what's the best way to try to correct the story.
Yeah, make the distinctions.
Yeah.
I agree, it's important.
It's a matter of semantics. We started out with a policy that was a sanctuary city policy because that's what the policies were at the time. But what a sanctuary policy asks for isn't much different than it's not sanctuary in the sense of you're going to shelter immigrants the way a church might. And it was actually the select board, sorry, I'm a school teacher, so everything's school board. It was actually the select board that wondered if it might make sense to change it so that it didn't get a lot of the negative connotation that sanctuary gets. And so we changed it to immigrant welcoming instead, because that's basically what it is. Some of the towns I listed, theirs are actually listed as sanctuary policies. But it was really just a matter of the word, and the fact that the word might imply something that we weren't really asking for. Does that help?
Just to make it abundantly clear, there is no sanctuary possible in the municipality. Therefore, we cannot ask for that, and we are not looking for that. Just to be clear.
Would you say there's no sanctuary possible in the municipality, just because of the way our municipality is formed, or?
No, under federal law, one cannot harbor an individual who is in violation of federal immigration law. So There are specifically, when it comes to religious organizations, there's an ancient sanctuary concept. But in terms of the law, you cannot harbor an individual. And if you just think about that logically, you can't harbor someone who is in violation of the law.
Great. Circling back to Rick one more time. No, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and lower his hand. Donna, you had your hand up.
Well, Susan, thank you for bringing up that definition of sanctuary, because I've been really troubled throughout these discussions by that, because we are so far from being sanctuary. I mean, if we had a church here opening its doors, if the First Congregational Church was opening its doors and allowing undocumented people to live there and feeding them, etc., that would be a sanctuary policy by the church. So I think I don't even know, can churches still declare sanctuary so that law enforcement can't enter them? I don't know. But I saw now that there's a petition being circulated by people who are opposing this policy. And I'm concerned because of the numbers game. I mean, I thought from the meeting with the select board that this was going well and that they would pass this policy. And I want to think strategically, and I want you to help me think strategically. What is it that we can do if we support this policy to put pressure on the select board to pass it?
Having talked to Catherine, I think it's really important that they see more positive than negative responses. And so sending a letter to the select board in support of the policy is really what we need at the moment, because there's an organized effort to send the negative reports, some of which are almost a form letter that the state Republican Party has initiated. And so the important thing right now, I think, is for the select board to realize that you support them in voting this policy into place. And I agree with you. We left the meeting feeling really, really heartened. And it's been really disheartening to see all the negative responses and people acting as though we just suddenly came up with this policy, like we have been working on it for 4 years.
Yeah, as Marge is saying, you know, we have been working on this immigration policy for 4 years. We have been in different spaces talking about it and never have felt or seen any opposition the way that we are seeing right now. So right after the elections, I think many people have felt very emboldened to threaten others when they don't agree with them. And that is what the chair of the board has received, as well as her immigrant mother-in-law and some others. So there is actual threats against them because they are supporting this policy. And Rolf actually shared an article from the Boston Globe where it's really saying that perhaps, you know, there is not going to be any sacred places anymore for people to be able to seek sanctuary, as we were talking before. Churches, schools, anything goes if ICE wants to go and raid immigrants. And so to me, as an immigrant, and the way that I have been supporting this policy, it is not so much of what we want to say that the town should be doing or employees of the town, but it is about us, of who we want to be as a community. And so then this policy kind of supports that we are a community where the people that are living here already, those immigrants who are living here already, can feel that they are safe, that they are welcome here. And I think that is the most important message out of this policy. And it's really sad to see how it has been distorted by so many people in our own town. And so hoping that there will be others that will speak in support of it, and hopefully read it. See, that is what is the thing too, is that people are not reading the policy, and it has been available in the public for a while now. And so let's encourage everyone to read it and then formulate their opinion. But right now, it is pure hate and opposition without being well informed.
Thanks.
Okay,
Donna, just before you start, we have a question from Brinley, but then also
I have
I
a
just want-
follow-up to the comment to my question.
Okay, I just want to let folks know in the chat there, the question had been raised. What's the select board's timeline on making a decision? They have not announced a formal decision. They have said that they'll be discussing it at least the next meeting and likely the one after that. And which I think, to Marge's point in the chat and her earlier comment, really calls for those in favor of this. Honestly, those who feel either way, time is of the essence to make the select, or, let the select board know what you think. So Donna, let's take your follow-up and then go to Brinley.
I just want to say that I have written 2 letters already, and I had one suggestion that I submit my second letter to the Boston Globe, which I'm considering doing today. But this petition thing, if we're playing a numbers game, wouldn't it be good if there was a petition from our side, from all the supporters? I mean, how is the select board going to react if they've got a petition with hundreds of people opposing letting criminal immigrants into Natick? It's thoughtless. It's not written well. I mean, Natick is united. Have you taken a formal support for this? And is it possible that you could spearhead, or somebody could spearhead a petition in favor of this that addends the policy to it, that's more thoughtful than with this? I mean, if this is a numbers game, I just think we need to play it. Thank you.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Donna.
I
agree, Dan. Yeah, let's get Brinley's question or comment out and then we can continue discussing.
Thanks, Doug. I believe I've said this before, so I just feel like I should say it again. There is a lot of help for what to write and what to say. If you are intimidated by how the prospect of writing to a government official, I know, is extremely intimidating to a lot of people. I know that is oftentimes a big reason for not expressing your point of view, because you don't have sources or facts or whatever the point is. And I think right now the point is just a simple sentence even is enough to say, I support this. Thank you for your hard work. I'm sorry that this has turned into something, and I support this. It's really can be that simple in terms of writing to the select board. It doesn't have to be long-winded or full of lots of other information. It really can be just a simple, I am in support of this. And if I'm wrong on that, Susan or Miriam or Marjorie, please let me know. But my understanding from this is, in the numbers game, it really is just a matter of saying thank you and I support this. And if anybody needs help, there, you can message me independently, and I can forward you some of the stuff that has been going around. There are emails going around with ways to support this. If you want a couple of paragraphs that are pre-written, and I'm sure anybody else would offer that as well. So please, and if I really do think that this is one of those things where support means, I know 10 people I'm willing to email. I'm going to email this paragraph and say, this something matters to me. You might not know it's going on, but it probably matters to you too. And here's an easy way for you to email. And if you do that with 10 people, if we all did that with 10 people with the email to the select board and a quick sentence or paragraph, whichever works for you in emailing, and an ability to see, a link to the actual policy, then it would, I think, could really make a difference.
So we have all of that information already. We have a form letter that has been circulating, so probably we can share that. And we're already also creating some infographics that are going to be very detailed on what the policy is about. So we will keep sending those out, and we can send that to all of you so that you can share it. So it's already all set to go.
So I see, Rick, go ahead, Marge.
I just posted
Okay.
the immigration policy website. It has a link to the policy. And by midday, it'll also have a link to the information that Miriam just talked about.
Great, thanks. Bill's got his, had a question. And does as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I have, I spent an hour this morning looking at 100+ responses to this, policy, and I'm struggling with one issue that I'm seeing from the other side. I think, Marge, that you addressed this, but I want to be really clear. On the 5th paragraph, there's discussion around when the local police can or can't support, for lack of a better term, support ICE where someone has been identified as committing a crime. So what I'm hearing from the other side is that we'd be prevented from doing that, and all these criminals would be hanging out, and we wouldn't be able to do anything about it. What I'm hearing you say is, no, that's not true. But help me out with this last sentence in the second, in paragraph 5, which reads, notwithstanding the prior sentence, nothing in this policy shall prevent an officer, employee, or department of the town from lawfully discharging duties in compliance with and response to a lawfully issued judicial warrant, judicial subpoena, or judicial detainer. My question is, are there other folks that are identified as criminals where there is not the judicial process, where if we implement this, we're preventing the local police from helping ICE arrest a person who's committed a crime or who is alleged to have committed a crime? I don't know whether that makes any sense. That's my concern.
The answer is no. If so, if you all remember the ICE raid of the factory, I think it was in New Bedford, where they just walked into town. They went into the factory. They arrested all the immigrants. Of course, they did nothing with the person who ran the factory, separated them from their children, all of that. That is something that Chief Hicks really wants to avoid, which is why he wants to be able to know if ICE is coming to town, and he wants to be there. If ICE says there's a criminal in town that's criminal because of immigration law, it is unlikely that our police would arrest them, but they're not going to prevent ICE from coming here and picking that person up. The detainers that ICE will sometimes send are not legal. They're not signed by a judge. They simply say, oh, we know you could have this guy in jail. Can you please hold on to him for us? And the answer is no, they won't. If that person is legitimately allowed to be released, they'll release them. But if we're, I mean, talking about, go ahead, Susan, do you have something to say?
Yes, I just wanted to clarify. Let's start like just from the top. And I know that we are talking about a Natick policy, but we're talking about here the interaction between federal law and state law. So our state has rendered a decision by the Supreme Judicial Court of Massachusetts, which is the highest court. It has interpreted the Massachusetts Constitution in a particular fashion. To be clear, the federal constitution is a floor above which many states may choose to provide greater protections should they wish. What the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court has determined is that an individual in the custody of the police of the Commonwealth, and remember that we have an anti-commandeering principle in our Constitution, the 10th Amendment, that says all laws not detailed by the federal government are reserved to the states, okay? So therefore, the instrumentalities of a state cannot be used to enforce federal law. The instrumentalities of the state paid by the taxpayers of the state
are to be used to enforce the state law. And the federal government, under our separation of powers doctrine and that 10th Amendment in particular, means that the feds do their work and the state officials do their work, just like any other type of work that we would normally observe that the FBI might do, for example. So with regard to our Constitution, the Supreme Judicial Court has determined that when an individual has completed their process under state law, when they are no longer the subject of Massachusetts state law, then they are therefore, whether they are freed because they were found innocent or for whatever other reason, they are no longer the subject of state law. The state police cannot continue to hold that person for the convenience of the federal government. Our control over that individual ceases when our state process ceases. And from that moment forward, when that person leaves that area, they can then be the subject of federal investigation or whatever federal action is necessary. But it is not.
Susan, but what?
Let me just finish.
Hang on, or let Susan finish.
So it's not the job of the state, whether it's the Natick police or the state police, it's not their job to continue to hold someone on a ICE detainer in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Bishop.
That's all that that's what Lund v. Commonwealth v. Lund actually stands for. And then
I'm going to send you the link.
And that last sentence, merely says, however, if a judge or someone else, if a judge actually, if a judge in the Commonwealth says, go and get that person, that's different. And that's a different situation. So that's all that last sentence is about.
All right, Susan, we need people that, by the way, that was Bishop Kelly, and he's going to be joining our discussion. We need as many organizations to combat this massive deportation that's coming on. And then there's my sister Marie, who's also involved in the community. So Native Black Lives Matter, and the former members are very aware of the signing on that we did for the policy. But Black folks also are concerned about being swept up, even if we're not immigrants. We can look like an immigrant, we can be confused to be as Haitians. And that's also a major concern. And also I wanted to mention Paul Carew is the liaison, Black Lives Matter liaison, and also is very helpful in avoiding some of these mass deportations. Carl?
Yeah, thanks for that, Deborah. Rick's been very patient and is now back. Rick, do you want to ask a question or make a comment?
Yeah, simply on process quickly, because I'm getting interrupted a lot here on my end. I apologize by the worker that came. I want to support what what's been said about letters, as well as what Deb just said about getting organizations. And so I don't want to take up time doing that, but the more organizations that we can approach, town organizations, Chamber of Commerce, cultural district, whatever, they can't do it, they're in the state, but ones that are independent to come out and support this process, the more helpful I think it could be. Thank you.
Thanks, Rick. I wanted to, Marge, if I could just make one comment. It will also general question and then one comment, and then I'll turn it back to you. The general question, as we've been talking about making our opinions known, writing lots of letters, maybe just the form letter to the select board. And I'll ask, maybe Jay knows the answer to this. I think Catherine Coughlin had just been speaking about answering every single one of those letters, which I don't know whether that's just a protocol or an obligation, whether it has anything to do with whether the letter is kind of a unique letter that asks questions that need a response versus just I'm in support. One thing, I'm all in favor of letting the select board know as vociferously as possible what our position is on it. We also don't want to create more work for them. And the other point I wanted to make and this is gonna sound like I'm just being naive, and please don't take it that way, but I recall from when we've had coffee with the purpose sessions with folks, with select board members, campaigning for their seats. One of the standard questions we always ask them is, what happens when you think public town opinion is different than what you feel is the right decision for the town? And without question, they've all said, I side with what I think is the right decision. So this is not to say that we shouldn't let the select board know how we feel. I'm trusting a little bit that the select board is not treating this just as a popularity contest. But it also raises the potential question of, is it yet another strategy to try to use whatever combined intel and connections we have to learn the individual opinions of the individual select board members? So all of that, Marge, back to you.
I just want to say, I think one of the things I don't quite understand is those who are against this policy, I don't think they have any idea how much time we have spent with the Natick police talking to them about this policy. When we met with a Republican town committee, one of the members was really concerned, and I asked her what her main concern was, and she said, I'm afraid you're tying the hands of the police. We have talked to Chief Hicks, I can't even tell you how many times, and we have worked this policy with him and Catherine has worked this policy with him as a select board person, kind of oversee. And we have worked with him, and this is the policy that the police agreed to. So we are not tying the hands of the police. Chief Hicks knows exactly what he can and cannot do. They already don't ask immigration status unless it's relevant for some reason. Job interviews, for example, you have to make sure that someone's a citizen. He's fine with this policy. I mean, we worked this thing with him so many times with he and Detective Lozon. Excuse me. So for those who think that we're tying the hands of the police or that the police are being overrun or whatever, they are not. Chief Hicks has worked this policy with us so many times to make sure that it is what he feels he can implement, isn't contradictory to what they're already doing, and isn't contradictory to the law. So that is a false narrative that the police won't be able to do anything. Chief Hicks is really good at his job, and he knows what this policy says and doesn't say, and he is in complete agreement with it.
Is it fair to say that the town can't enact a policy that's, well, maybe not that they can't enact a policy in violation of state or federal law, but that state or federal law would supersede a town policy anyway? So
Yes.
We don't really have the ability to say we're gonna do something we can't do. Rolf and then Paul.
Well, I just was gonna ask a rhetorical question. Maybe this is a statement, not a question, but do facts matter for the people that are in opposition to this? My answer to that is I don't know that they do that much, because they know that their form letter is making up facts, and so I just throw that out there.
Yeah, it's frustrating. Paul.
Thank you, Doug. Thank you folks for being here this morning. I appreciate it as
Yes.
member of the town, Director of Veteran Services for the town of Natick. I belong to a good number of organizations, Charles River Rotary, Freedom Team, and other groups here in town. And what I'm hearing this morning, I haven't seen the document, to be honest with you. I've been away, but I'd like to see the copy of the document. But I feel that Marjorie, your explanation of Chief Hicks' role in this satisfies me. I know Chief Hicks is a man of honor. He's a good police leader in the Commonwealth and beyond. So if you're telling me this, I'm gonna take that as gospel, and that's I think would be a moving point in many people in this issue. This issue, and I think if everybody it was aware of that there might be some, everybody's afraid of change. I served the Marines War and Coast Guard for 12 years. Everybody's afraid of change. I served in Vietnam. Everybody's afraid of change. And as long as the change is properly explained to the folks, I think there'll be a better reaction. Not that you folks aren't doing a good job. You're here this morning, and I just haven't seen the document. I'm sorry.
Can I just?
Yeah, the policy itself is, it's one of the links in the invite to today's session, and it's out on the select board site. We can screen share it again if you want, but,
Thank you, Doug. I'll look at it.
Could I just respond to that for a second?
Yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Crew, first of all, thank you so much for your service. And one of the things I know you're very familiar with is the history that the military has actually been a leader in, oftentimes when it comes to things like being integrated and being modern and facing realities that individual civilians ordinarily don't need to face. And when the rubber hits the road, you do what you do because it's the right thing. Many individuals have opted into the selective service and have opted into serving this country who are not documented in the hopes that putting their lives on the line would be a factor that would be considered in their favor in being considered to have the honor of being a U.S. citizen. Ultimately, it stands to, we hope that in the future, people will continue to be able to do that and to lead the way forward. So I just want to thank you for your thoughts and for your service and for that opportunity, for the pathway for citizenship for people who serve this country. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Well said.
Thanks for that, Susan. Rick, before I take your question, I wanted to just ask Cindy. Cindy, you had put a couple of links in the chat. I think it might have been calling attention to some statistics and so forth. Was there anything comment that you wanted to make or call people's attention to any of it, or? You got to come off mute, Cindy.
I found myself curious to know what the population, the foreign-born population in Natick is presently, and it's 20%, and that's amazing. And so in my letter, I'm going to bring attention to the fact that 20% of Natick's population are already foreign-born, and so I just thought I would share it. I guess that's why. And now my brain is starting to go like, well, what's been the percent of foreign-born population back to 1850, and how has that changed? And I know a lot of people who live in Natick have ancestors who came 100 years ago or 150 years ago, and it's a part of the American story of people coming to the United States, and they haven't always been welcomed. In fact, many times they haven't been welcomed, but they somehow manage. And I'm hopeful that the select board will support this, and that's kind of where my mind was going in terms of the letter that I plan to write.
Thanks for that, Cindy. And of course, these links will be in follow-up email too. Rick.
Yeah, this may have been answered when I had to get out of the room for a couple minutes, but I just wanted to circle back to Bill's question. Did it get fully? I heard the mile high thing that Susan talked about, the Constitution, the state Constitution, but what the puzzling thing to me in that remark, since he called attention to it, is the line that says nothing shall prevent an officer or employee from lawfully discharging duties with I assume this means a lawfully issued judicial warrant from ICE on somebody. They have to go to, I understood they have to go to the trouble to get a warrant, and that's why they don't do it. I thought because it takes time and money to have somebody on the clock doing that work, and we all know they're underfunded. But is it really optional? It's, optional for our police to respond to a lawfully issued judicial warrant that happens to have been initiated by ICE, or is it required? I mean, I could see people thinking, well, why do we leave it up to them? If this is a warrant for somebody's arrest, why aren't they arrested? That's the question that I think is probably out there. And I don't have an answer.
Yeah, I think Susan might.
Yes, if there is a judicially issued warrant, the police are, first of all, see, they absolutely have to follow an arrest warrant.
Okay, so then why would the policy say nothing shall prevent an officer? Why wouldn't that have been finessed out of that?
Well, because all it does is clarify that the sentence above doesn't contain, is not so broad that it would include that as an exception. So it's notwithstanding anything of the contrary that you might interpret from that that paragraph. Let me be clear that nothing prevents the police from following through with an official warrant. That's all.
Okay, if I on it, I would say you can leave it as it is, but I think it needs further clarification to say, so this means that our police will arrest somebody if there is a judicial warrant.
So just so you know, that's exactly what that says.
But it doesn't say that to me, and I don't think it says that to most people. And I think that's what, Bill, I don't want to speak for you, but that's what you were reading. So,
well, then that might be an appropriate clarification that you would want to share in a letter.
I will.
The case here that the select board has a proposed policy in front of them, they could modify that policy however they want.
Yeah, I know. I was at the meeting. I know they're thinking about, they're reconsidering the name and the language probably. Thank you. I don't take time. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Rick. Paul?
Yeah, real quick response to a couple of comments, Susan and Cindy. I come from a family of immigrants, grandparents, and they were not welcome in Massachusetts, in this country, when they came to this country from Ireland. They were not welcome. I heard horror stories from my grandmother, horror stories in her Gaelic and English. I think that's wrong. And I think, I'm not sure, Susan, I think it was you made the comment about folks joining the military with the expectations of becoming American citizens. That's 100% right, and that's the way it should be at all times. If you want to serve this country, you should be a citizen. You should be given citizenship automatically. And I have a lot of clients. I also do therapy work. I have a lot of clients, a number of clients, I'm sorry, that fit that criteria. So you're 100% right. And Deborah knows me better than anybody. And well, I think Doug and Sarah know me pretty good now. I'm 100% behind welcoming folks. 100% behind welcoming folks. Thank you. Thank you for your work.
Thanks, Paul. Deborah and then Donna.
I'm very proud of Natick and the work Paul, Donna, everybody on this board has done. And I totally support the welcoming statement we'll sign on. And we want to make sure that Black people have come here as slaves. So everybody has an immigration story, but our story is a little bit different because we weren't immigrants. We were stolen from our homes. And therefore, the resilience of Black folks are one of the most resilient, because of the history. Not to say anybody else's history isn't important, but it's important to mention that there's going to be a rollback of civil rights on Black. So a lot of people are feeling anxious. And I'm just glad that I can come and to speak. My friend Donna, she told me, Deb, come on, get on. She reminded me. And also, I want to mention, I've been contacted by this family that Rolf, are you here?
He is, yeah.
Rolf, that family that you work with that came from Togo. And you know who I'm talking about?
Sure do.
They're immigrants, I believe. And from Africa. And they contact me to help with babysitting again, and I'm gonna try to help them. And I know for people, Ralph, you've helped them a lot.
Deborah, you make a good point. Thanks for your comments. Because I think we've got big issues like this about policies and what kind of policies does the town enact. And then we've got the individual things that we do as individual citizens with other individual people, like reaching out to this family from Togo. So, you know, we got to continue to do all that stuff as well. Donna, I see you've got your hand up, and I also just want to make note of something Miriam had in the chat, which I think would be good. She said, let's close the session with kind of a recap of key action items that folks here could consider.
Please, good idea.
Yeah, so let's do that, but Donna, I'll give you the floor first.
Yes, I just want to build on that, getting back strategically, what is it we can do? And I'm not of the mind that a one sentence supporting this policy is as impactful as somebody writing something that's personalized, working with an immigrant family, talking about the numbers of immigrants in Natick, that I think that matters. But if you don't have time to do that, this is again a question, should we be doing a petition? Because there's going to be a lot of people signing this thoughtless, evil petition. So what can we do to make this as impactful as possible to get voices out? That is the question now. So thanks.
Thanks, Donna.
Oh,
So in
Mary.
terms of takeaways, yeah, Marge, Miriam, any of the folks working on the coalition, we can give you guys collectively the floor.
Miriam, I'm going to give it to you.
Yeah, so I think that the first thing is that we need to share the form letter and people can make it personal and then be able to write to the select board. Also, I think just in general, think about how are we going to come together as a community. That I think the worst is coming, and so we need to come together. So Natick is United is going to be working to create an alliance in Metro West to be ready for whatever is coming, to protect the LGBT community, to continue to protect the BIPOC folks that lives in our community. So stay tuned for things that we are going to be, we'll continue to publish. So this is just the beginning of what is happening right here in Natick. And we know that we are preaching to the choir. So if you are able to write to others and share that form and say, please write to the select board to support this, that would be really great.
Marge?
So I posted a link to the immigration policy website in the chat, and the policy is on there. And then you can also, I will put this letter on there as well. So that's one place you can go for both. But I just want to say I emailed 4 people that I knew about this, and one of them emailed it to 34 different people. So getting in touch with your friends and letting them know about this, if they are people that you know and you know are your friends and with you, they will then pass it on as well. So the more people who know, the better. And you can even send them a link to the letter once I have it on the website.
Good suggestion. Cindy?
Yeah, so it doesn't sound like anybody in your group is enthusiastic about starting a petition, is that right?
None of us can speak for the group. We're a deliberative oriented group. So it's not that we're against the idea. It's like we just want to have a think on it. Does anybody here, do you have an opinion? I think Miriam would want me to say, do you have an opinion that you'd like to share?
Well, Susan, one response possibly, and I'm only one part of the coalition group, is we are meeting, I believe, on Wednesday, and we can discuss that on Wednesday, 2 days from now.
And then Cindy, how do you feel about that?
If there were a petition, I would sign it. But I don't really know in terms of strategy how useful it would be. And I'm not that kind of a, you know, my
Yeah.
knowledge is not there at all.
I've got a question about whether, when it's a petition, but the signatures aren't verified. I'm wondering how much thought select board puts into that. There was a petition for the dam issue, and I know the anti-dam people tried to make a lot of hay with it, but I think, you know. So anyway,
I was just going to
Julie's-
bring up that same exact comment, Doug, because I do know in past, now that was a different select board than we have right now. There were different members. There's 3 people on there now that weren't on for the dam. But actually we might have a whole new one. Anyway, that usually has been the thinking in the past, is that an unverified petition doesn't hold as much weight as individual emails.
Yeah, I was going to weigh in on the same thing. I actually, because of my background as a hydrogeologist, I followed the dam issue pretty closely and went to a lot of public hearings and made a lot of comments and so on and so forth. And I actually went through this, all however many 100 signatures were on that petition. And yeah, there were a lot of names I recognized, but there were people who listed their addresses in foreign countries and, just there were multiple signatures, and there was, as some was previously mentioned, there were not verified signatures. So, I think as somebody just mentioned, if there were a petition, I would sign it, but if we don't feel like putting together a petition, I don't think it's a strategy that needs to be followed to get this concept, to say, well, we did it and they did it, and therefore these petitions have an equivalency. I don't see that as something necessary.
So quickly, if it helps, at the select board meeting, when this was presented for the first time, then each one by one, the select board members expressed their opinion, and they all seem to be very favorable to the policy. So I think what they need to hear now is the support from the public.
Thanks. So Judy and Kathleen and Bill all have their hands up, as well as Donna, and we're also at 10:30. So if we could kind of be brief, but go ahead,
First, I
Judy.
wanted to know, do we actually know that person that you just?
I
stated?
apologize. Yeah, I do not know that person, but I know that, okay, now yeah, Bishop Kelly, we do know.
Okay,
Yeah, I think he just had to change his name.
okay.
thanks.
I just wanted to say that I do think it's about numbers. I did hear a select board member early on in the process talk about maybe it wasn't the select board, maybe it was another government official on another issue, but they actually had gone through letters and said, well, there were 2 to 1 in
Yes.
favor of X, right? So that they're going through looking for what's new in this letter. Is there something new from this person? And they are actually tallying. And I do think that a petition, I just want to put this out to your group as you consider, I do think a petition will draw out people who are hesitant to draft something or send something that's pre-drafted themselves.
Okay.
I think that you'll draw other people into the supportive conversation.
Okay.
Who may be relative.
Yeah, thanks. Kathleen?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I support the idea of a petition. I think letters are more powerful, but to Judy's point, a lot of people will sign something they're in favor of where they won't sit and draft a letter. I also think you have to consider the optics, the select board of a long petition against and no petition for. And another reason in favor of it, I would say, is you can use it as a tool to educate people who don't know much about the issue. And you'd have to do that very briefly. And I was thinking the language at the top of your current one pager, where you say very briefly, the point of all the bullets, sort of more in layman's language.
Yeah.
You could just take that and very easily make that be the text of the petition, so people could quickly see, without all the detail and the state law and the references, just what's the point of this thing? So I think you could use it as a tool to educate people who maybe haven't heard about the issue or don't quite know what the petition says. So it might be important for the people signing it as much as for the select board.
Thanks, Kathleen. Bill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna play devil's advocate here. I support the petition and I'd sign it. My concern is if we send a petition out and it gets 100 people and they send a petition out and it gets 400 people, that may be a bad optic. So if you're gonna do it all in and get it out to as many people as you can. You got like a week and a half. So my concern is that if we do it and it fizzles, that might be a negative, but lots of positives, so good luck on your deliberations.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. Deborah was also asking in the chat, when the next select board meeting where they're discussing this is, what date? This Wednesday.
Oh, it's this week.
Or is it this Wednesday or?
I don't
No.
know for sure.
It's
Next Wednesday.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
So,
December 11th. It's December
yeah.
11th, I believe.
Yes.
Let's take Donna's comment question and then maybe let Susan have the last word and we'll try to close out. Donna?
I just was concerned too about the next select board meeting, and I'm wondering how likely is the select board to cave? I mean, is this strictly a numbers thing? Are they gonna cave? Because they look like they all supported it at the last meeting. And are they gonna, is it the one with the most votes, the most letters is gonna win this policy? Does anyone have any feel on the perception of the select board here?
So that actually falls right into one of the, like, my question or slash comment, which is obviously the board is prepared for dialogue because they said that they would hold multiple meetings, meaning that they understood that there would be a desire for contribution from a variety of community members. That's how I read that. One of the select board members said, I support this policy, but I wish there was something we could do to allay the fears of the people that have raised concerns. And for me, that is a concerning message because accommodating an inchoate fear is not something that any policy can actually accomplish. So I would just urge all of us to please stay strong and hold your ground. Whether a couple of words are modified, etc., at the end of that's fine. But at the end of the day, the policy must stand largely in the form that it is. Marge and Miriam have worked incredibly hard, harder than it might appear on this call today. I wasn't planning on saying anything. And it's just that it stands that it's clear that we need to speak more, be more informed. But at the end of the day, the reaction that we're receiving is not one based on actual fear or actual, it is actual fear, excuse me, not to say that. It is not based on actual facts. It is not based on reason, and therefore it cannot be accommodated. There is nothing short. What they simply want to do is intimidate the board into not moving forward with this policy. So I ask all of you today, please help us stay strong. We've worked really hard on this. It has nothing to do with the election. It has everything to do about the fact that this is a town that loves each other and loves their neighbor as themselves.
Thank you for that, Susan. I think that's a really good closing
very
message.
good,
Cindy, I realize you had a hand up, but I do kind of want to wrap us up. Was there something super quick? Yeah.
I just want to say that I think this resonates with me with what Rick said. I don't think the policy needs to be changed to allay people's fears. What could be considered is how it's presented. You can allay people's fears by the way it's couched, like, this isn't something people need to be afraid of. Like, you know, like, I don't know, but there's a whole psychology about it to overcome fear. And it doesn't have anything to do with reason. And the policy is beautiful just as it is. But there may be ways that you can, and I'm not a psychologist, but there may be ways that you can reach people in that in their hearts about this policy being a good thing and not something to be afraid of. And that's what I picked up from Rick.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Thank you for everybody that joined in the discussion
Yeah.
this morning.
Bishop
Thanks again.
Bishop Kelly is here to say hello, Doug.
I see that where folks are starting to really wrap up, so I really appreciate Bishop Kelly joining us. We wish him greetings, but yeah, let's get wrapped up. Good luck to the coalition and your meeting this Wednesday. Continue to let us.
Hey, Doug, just a suggestion, maybe turn the recording off and those who wish to stay a bit and just chat. I don't know if our guests have the time or not. It might be useful, but
that's a good point.
I have further thoughts, I know, and I'm sure other people do and questions.
Yeah, I like that idea. I'm going